This is our very high-tech live stream setup. Do you like it? Yeah, I think somebody brought that to a Game Mechanics like months back, and it's just been sitting on that rack over there. On the saltwater taffy video game that somebody had made.
I might not start with you guys then. We have C, you, and Jessica. Jessica doesn't have a computer. Doesn't need a computer. So,
Perfect.
So when you try to see, it's probably this can take her hands. You're like, so Sophie, you want to plug. Do Jessica.
Well, Steve and I are both on the same.
Yeah, that's true. But you weren't the last, right?
We never know. We don't even have to.
I mean, it's not big. If you weren't the last one, you're starting Jack.
Daniel.
You want to go for it?
I was way too optimistic. I didn't realize that one thing was like, because the other tracks they gave you it's nice, so they gave higher. I was like, okay, so not this about the other one makes a really good hamburger.
See what we're going to do? Kyle's moving out right now. Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
So, see you like soon. He's going back to Pittsburgh, I guess. He just told me the second hour.
So he's out on Phillytron for stuff like this.
Unfortunately, I'm going to get through my play before my lives. It just means that whenever I fix these whole things, which I was hoping to do with him, that I can do it myself.
Did you give us an extra one? There's an extra.
Oh, he knows he has extra more keys. Well, maybe before he leaves, maybe I'll text him tonight and see if he can the regular shape of it, and then I can ask my friend to maybe
Obviously, I like down kind of like a small project.
I mean, like that would be
All right, everybody, we're going to start show and tell, so please take your seats. Does everyone settle down? What's the shutdown? Everyone, welcome to Philadelphia Game Mechanics.
What's this?
Today's work play. But first, we're doing show and tell. Starting with Dan.
So this is I never say no to an opportunity to demo this. This is Reset Hard, and it's an old school arena shooter / puzzle game with multiplayer asynchronous time travel. The premise behind Reset Hard, mouse out of the way. The premise behind Reset Hard is that you have a timeline along the bottom, and whenever you die, you go back to the beginning of the timeline. But information that you learn is retained because your memory exists outside of time. So in this case, I'm locked inside this room, and I can't get to the switch to open the door. I have the password to open the door, but I can't get to it. But I can reset. And when I reset, I still remember the password for this door. And a lot of the game is basically about just sort of figuring out this mechanic and learning how time travel in general works. And from there, you bridge into co-op and multiplayer. And in co-op and multiplayer, you have multiple people on the same timeline. And whenever somebody dies, they go back to the beginning of the timeline, and everyone else stays where they are. So you can have multiple people on different points of the timeline at the same time, like simultaneously changing things or changing history or changing things in the future. And all of this is very systemic. Like, I don't actually fake anything in Reset Hard. One of the things that annoys me with like puzzle games and stuff is when, especially with time travel games, is when like puzzle solutions are based on like what the designer says instead of the system. So in the back end to Reset Hard, I actually run an internally consistent simulation of time travel, and all of the mechanics are actually just extending off of that system. So I don't fake anything, and that's also like a really nice way to approach design for me, because I just play around with the system, and whenever I see something that's weird, I make a puzzle out of it. So in this case, you have two concepts being explored. One is this idea of metatime. Your memory exists out of time, but any property in the world can also be projected outside of time, including like when I hit this switch. So this is a reverse switch. It opens before I press it, not after I press it. So if I reset, the door is open before I press it, but it's not open after I press it. And there is a consequence to that, which I will show very, very quickly, and then I'll end the demo. So a consequence of that is that if I press this switch and then reset, and then head to the door, the switch closes on me, because the switch is closed, the door is open before I press the switch, not after I press the switch. So the single player is all just sort of working through puzzles like this. I want it to feel like this very exploratory, like safe, almost like a shelter or something. Like you're in this very tiny world learning about time travel. And then multiplayer is when you say like, oh, I've learned all of these cool tricks and toys, but other people also have access to them. So that becomes a lot more stressful. So that is Reset Hard. Yes.
So have you played Braid?
I have played Braid.
And Braid has that time mechanic.
Braid is similar.
I want to know what
yeah.
makes your game different than Braid.
So a lot of time travel games, not just Braid, but a lot of them in general, are thinking about time as cause versus effect, or cause and effect. So you're doing something in the past and it's impacting something in the future. I would say that Braid doesn't have internally consistent time travel. The mechanics change every single world. But Reset Hard is not about cause and effect. You're thinking about time spatially. So what you saw with the reverse switches, I can press a switch in the future and I can have an effect in the past. And in the same way, like someone in the future can do something, or someone in the past can do something, and it doesn't immediately affect other parts of the timeline. So it's a lot more about, you have two dimensions to play with, and time is your third dimension. And you're using that almost like a spatial dimension to get vantage points of people. So you're doing things like sniping people from the past into the future, or from the future into the past. Or in co-op, you might have somebody hit a reverse switch in the future for someone in the past. You want to get away from thinking of the atypical model of what everyone thinks about time travel. Reset Hard has very different rules. And it's a small set of rules, but they're different, and the consequences of those rules are very, very different and a little unintuitive for what you might be used to.
It's crazy how comfortable and confident you are talking about something that most people not.
Well,
and we're just like, yeah, that just makes sense.
I've been demoing and this was actually not a very good presentation, but I've been demoing and presenting Reset Hard for like 4 months. That's the first time that it happened. So like at this point, basically if someone gives me an opportunity to demo Reset Hard, I never say no, unless I physically can't get to the event or I'm just so tired that I can't. But after a while, you just get better at it.
The time travel, I'm sure, helps.
I would love to have a system like Reset Hard in the real world for demos. Yes.
Have you ever seen Predestination?
I have not.
It's the greatest movie ever.
Is it?
Is it super?
Is that the one where everybody dies?
Getting a Final Destination.
All right, okay. I can't
Wow.
talk about the movie at all without spoiling it. I have a list of media sources that people, yeah, that people have told me to read. Primer is not a bias. Everyone says that I need to go watch Primer, Predestination. The problem is that a lot of these things are very, very cool, but like Reset Hard is internally consistent. So it's not like Primer is one that people bring up, and I only know a little bit about Primer's time travel, but I know enough to know that it's already different from what I'm doing. And it's not something where I can just like randomly decide to change one mechanic, because the system has to be logical. Like I take that to an absurd degree. Even stuff like player progress and save data in Reset Hard is consistent with the internal time travel model. So there is like no narrative mechanical distinction at all at any point in the entire game. So it's tricky for me to look at these other sources and then say like, oh, I should use that mechanic, because like to a certain extent, I don't really decide the mechanics in Reset Hard. They're all emergent properties of the system.
So you mentioned being able to snipe switches from out from under
Yes.
other players. So is the intent for the multiplayer eventually to be like a lot of players competing within a single puzzle, or and like intentionally making it difficult for each other, or
So there's two sides to this. One is co-op, which is you have two people competing, or not competing, but working together to solve the same objectives, which will just be more escape room puzzles. For competitive, there are multiple modes that I'm playing with. One is just like deathmatch. The other is escape room, and whoever gets out of the escape room first wins.
also like actively trying to eliminate each other as opposed to
Yeah,
like, boxing
because
each other out.
because killing other people is not very profitable in Reset Hard. Like if you're a multiplayer and you shoot someone, maybe that's useful because you might prevent them from accomplishing an objective in the future. But also you're putting them at a vantage point where they can change things in the past when you can't see what they're doing. So it's sort of always a trade-off. What you're really trying to do is just slow them down so that you can complete objectives faster.
So killing is kind of just like blocking them out of the
Yeah.
future, but they're still in the past.
Yeah, you can never eliminate someone from a level, but you can like slow them down and like make their life harder. And I've played with that a little bit between 2-player and 4-player squads is another thing that's interesting. But that's ultimately going to come down to, is it fun? Mechanically and like engine-wise, everything just kind of works. You can have 4 people time traveling at the same time, no problem. The question is it going to be possible to follow anything that's happening? Because the danger with a system like this is always, like I'm not trying to make a Twitch-based game. I want to make a game where you can understand the consequences of what you're doing. So I don't know if you put 4 people into a level, whether it will just be like complete chaos. And if it is, then I won't do that.
Next up is
Hey guys. I just wanted to make a little like plug offer. So this game that I've been working on for quite a while, just keep working on for the foreseeable future, called R&J, is running in the Phillytron right now. So we've gotten a lot of like really helpful feedback. The game's still like glitchy at times. There are weirdnesses. Back up.
just a little. Yeah, perfect.
Am I too close to you?
No. No, we're just streaming this whole thing, so I just want you to be.
Oh, got it. Thanks. So the game is essentially, for those of you who haven't already heard this 6 times, like you play with a stranger and you essentially have these little conversation-based games. It's based on Romeo and Juliet, so it gets a little dark. It is like, in all senses, an emo clusterfuck right now, like which is what R&J really is meant to be, I think. So in that sense, it's nice that the mechanics are fitting the actual experience. But if anyone wants to play, come let me know, because I have discount codes, or if you're like, I want to play, but I have no money, guess what? I can give you the website, so just let me know. It just takes a little bit of advanced registration. I need to know like 24 hours in advance of the day that you want to start. So if you are interested, let me know. I would love to have some more gamer feedback. I have a little bit so far, but it's great. 2 people fell in love and are going on, they've been like going on dates, and 2 other people, it's amazing, I'm so happy. And like other people who like met at other shows are playing together now, so there's some cool stuff happening. And everyone who's had things go wrong has like come back to me. They haven't been like, fuck you. Sorry, we're just recording. They haven't like told me off and said like I want my money back. They've all just said like I really want to play again so that I'm gonna have the full experience. So there are pros and cons, but it's super fun. It takes 5 days. It doesn't take all day. But let me know. My name's Jessica. Find me.
Steve, you're up next.
Cool.
Oh, actually happened. I love when things just go. Yeah, I'm gonna talk first. I'm Steve. Hey. And I work for a company called Phillytron Collective. Carly and Rachel also work there. We're located up the street, and we make games. And we just released a game a couple weeks ago in the Bullwinkle Family Fun Center in Tukwila, Washington. 15 minutes outside. Yeah, Tukwila! Yeah, so it's a 3-player VR game based on the cartoon show We Bare Bears on Cartoon Network. So it's a game where you run a food truck and you serve customers and you're kind of racing against the clock to serve as much food as possible. But the food can catch fire, so you have to like douse the fire, but then your food's soggy and all of that affects like how much money you're bringing in, and all of our food is internally consistent. So it's all systemic food cooking. The truck is really so no, it's not. Audio's not coming through.
Alright, ready for what?
Anyway, this is a really bad trailer Cartoon Network made for us. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it. It's definitely not coming through the speakers.
Go for the people's faces.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have like dynamic ketchup splatter.
No, like custom. Like
Yeah, you can just like hurl shit out the window at people.
Like,
Will they still pay you if you do?
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
because I want a customer to say, this burger's no good.
Yeah, to put it in context, we made this game in like 3 months. So my role on it was like technical animator, so I did a lot of the rigs, setting up the characters in VR, so they're it's 3 vibes in a weird plexiglass box, so your arms track, it's gonna autoplay some shit, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to use this computer.
A competing video game.
Anyway. Yeah, so it, like your arms track the Vive controllers, and then there's a little script that makes your little bare nub feet move when your head moves around, so you can actually move around the plexiglass box is the same size as the truck in the game, but there's like an island, like a prep table in the game that's not physically present, so there's a lot of really good videos of people trying to like rest on the counter and just eating entirely. Yeah, it was the first game I ever made in VR. It was our first game in VR. We made a VR experience before we're here on the swing. It's bad. It's a vertigo simulator. Yeah, if you want to talk about VR shit or what it's like to work for Cartoon Network, come talk to me, I guess.
I can attest to it being fun as hell.
Yeah, I can't really like bring it places because it's like a paid experience for Cartoon Network. So if you want to like go to Seattle and check it out, I recommend it.
Is it like an on-site thing?
Yeah, it's in the
like,
It's like a partnership with another company that does like weird stuff, like giant speakers
Oh,
on
yeah.
floors that rumble.
Yeah, that's
but like
the-
that's the whole.
The
that's
whole
the
gimmick
entire
is the
technology.
vibrating floor.
It's a floor speaker.
Hi, Woody.
Can you cook your face?
You can't cook your face. One of the stretch things that I didn't get time to get to was we were gonna have it that if you put your hand like in the deep fryer, it was gonna like catch your hand on fire. But we either didn't get to it or Cartoon Network said that was not like on the
Turning your hand into a meal.
It's not completely off brand. You can burn all the food. You can throw flaming food out the car at the customers. There's a squirrel that comes in and steals your food.
There's no.
But you can turn a squirrel into a drumstick.
Oh, they're not.
Yeah, if you put the squirrel in the deep fryer, it cooks the squirrel.
So you can't take a knife and cut yourself.
There's a good Easter egg that I'll just tell you about, because none of you are gonna play it. But there is an Easter egg if you like. There's a stove under the grill, which is one cool because you can open the like oven door, but it's on both sides. So if you open both of them, you can look through and take your fire. And if you set the oven knobs to a certain combination, there's a Easter egg in the oven.
Actually, sure.
Yeah, no funny.
Tell me about the egg.
What?
What is the egg? You have to go find my egg. This is Ready Player One.
Yeah, it's a fun game. I like Ice Bear. He's my favorite. Cool.
Alright, up next is Jake.
And Woody and Steve.
We're still here. This one.
I think that's now.
Phillytron.
Sure, yeah. So I forgot the order of everything, but yeah.
Phillytron's back.
Phillytron is back, yes. We delivered this little baby from the hospital, and here it is. Yeah. Jake wanted to put together a presentation of like all the stuff that was basically from Steve building the Phillytron over the last like 6-8 months, and then like all the events that it's been to. So basically, do you want to go through like some of the slides, and I'll kind of talk through some of the stuff that you have up there. So the first big thing was like was MagFest. So the Phillytron, before it was like fully functioning and ready for public consumption. You were in contact with like some folks at MagFest about this Death by Audio arcade, which is an indie games arcade that they build in conjunction with Baby Castles inside the sort of indie game floor at MagFest. And there's probably, what would you say, like probably 20 games there?
Yeah.
20 individual games that these are their only arcade cabinet, these are their only versions of them that really exist anywhere in the world, is in these indie arcades, which is really cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about the few things you did for MagFest, the few crazy things? So like get into that point.
Yeah, like signing up for MagFest was just a good idea. I recommend it if you ever want to get something done, make a really, really unrealistic deadline for yourself, like building an arcade cabinet in a few months, and then fuck it up real bad, but get it done. So like I was up for like 2 days straight before leaving for MagFest to fix it, which was at Flyclops, because Woody originally bought the hardware for an arcade cabinet and gutted it, and then it lived in a closet in Jake's office for like 5 years. And then I put a new PC in it.
That's it at Flyclops.
I said, Jake, do you want my trash? And he said, yes, I would love that.
And like one of the games on it needed like a .NET update and some XNA stuff, but it didn't have the computer in it didn't have an Ethernet port, and Jake's office doesn't even have Ethernet, so we had to take his Wi-Fi router down to get to the only Ethernet jack, which is like up like 7 feet in the air.
Thankfully, we had 24 cases of LaCroix that we
Yeah, so we put the PC on the tower of LaCroix. Jake had to leave, so I'm alone in his office with a PC up in the air on a stack of sparkling water, downloading updates to fucking .NET. What?
There it is somewhere. I wish I would have found
Yeah,
that.
there is a picture of
I'll
the
see if I
PC on
can
the
find
stack.
it.
Yeah, it's on your Instagram, I think.
Yeah, if you go to my Twitter, I have a
I think it
whole
would be mine,
moments. It's probably on, but I have a moments of all the Phillytron stuff.
It's somewhere.
And then me and two of my friends who were showing at MagFest drove through a blizzard with this loaded up in his Ford Explorer. With me kind of like curled up inside of the little like monitor divot to fit it in the Ford Explorer. It sucked.
Extra safety, yeah.
And it was like it was kind of, you can see it doesn't look like it did now. It was had a fairly plain marquee. I mean, Woody did a ton of work initially to get the thing set up in a 4-player cabinet, and then Steve did a ton of work to get it up and running for Phillytron. And so basically when we brought it back from MagFest, it was like, it was a success in that it was there and people played games. We had a tournament on it, we had a wire running tournament on it. And it was there and it was a citizen, but like we definitely felt like it needed to.
It crashed every 10 minutes.
Constantly, yeah.
It was constantly like dumping the desktop.
Yeah.
So then we wanted to make it better. So we proceeded to
The wires.
wire.
Yes.
Woody rewiring some shit. There's some crazy. We like rebuilt the control top. Do you want to talk about some of the hardware like stuff?
Yeah, totally. One of the best things I think about MagFest was just being able to watch so many people play the cabinet. MagFest is 3 days or 4 days?
It's like 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days, but it's a 24-hour long day, 24 hours a day for 3 straight days. So one of the best things about MagFest is that there's these hours where you know it's going to be crazy, and then there's all these hours where you know people are just going to be kind of milling around, and because they're on, I don't know, 10,000 gallons of Mountain Dew, they're just like wandering around at 5 a.m. like, what do I touch? And when your arcade cabinet is there, you just kind of push them towards it and watch them play. And so one of the really great things is that we got this awesome feedback about how the initial sort of control panel was built and how we kind of wanted to change that. So being able to like kind of see player feedback and kind of hear player feedback and yeah, just kind of gave us some ideas of like what we wanted to do. So this is, in addition to being a strange photo of me, is us building a new control panel out of cardboard to test some of those theories, which ended up being really helpful because then when we put you guys in front of the control panel and folks were playing it, like some of the most common feedback that we got was, this shouldn't feel right, but it does. And we were like, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So we ended up deciding this is what we should do. So Kyle, who built Scoot Pooch, which was in that other photo, ended up building us Scoot Pooch, which is there. It's a video game. He ended up building us a new control panel, which was really cool.
And the marquee.
He built that marquee as well. And so yeah, that was like the big thing with the control panel was like being able to have so many people play it and watching them and kind of taking in that feedback and building the new control panel. And then the wood glue in that one photo is Kyle actually came in and like wood glued back together the times that the arcade cabinet over the years had like fallen into a thing and like almost snapped on parts. So we were able to actually get it like back in its like clean kind of looking area. So so the artwork was done by Marina Romero, who many of you guys know. She came in and in 2 days painted the entire outside of the cabinet. It just totally went nuts and basically survived only on the meals that were presented to her and occasional breaks to like look at her phone. But just like, she says it's not done, which I really still don't understand because it looks so amazing. But she wants to do like a whole other pass on it again and add more details.
And if you guys haven't noticed, there's like, I think like classic video game and just generic game stuff on one side and like Philly specific characters from Philly game jams on the other side, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and she'll probably talk about this whenever she's done with it and if she wants to talk about it with you guys. But one of the things that she was saying to us as she was doing it is that in addition to including some of the characters from the games that are already on the cabinet, she actually invented some new characters that she guys wants you guys to sort of incorporate straight into new games. So that frog that's punching a Liberty Bell and cracking it, like that's actually, she wants that to be a character in a game. So if you guys have ideas for frogs
That's
punching
pretty awesome.
things, like make that game and for the Phillytron, and it will already be there.
It's a dialogue between the art and the games we make.
Yeah.
And then the huge payoff of all the work we put into this, and we're not addressing the games that are on it, but there's a dozen or so games made by Philly people on it that are playable, which is really cool. And the whole mission of the Phillytron is to like have those games on it that are made here, so people can learn about us, learn about the people who made the games, and hopefully, inspire them to get involved with our community, so we have a like more thriving, larger community of more creative people, and also just to get exposure for all the games on it. So we're really excited to work with a few like Philly institutions this year. So one was the Franklin. I'll just play this little thing while we talk. But there we go. This is just a quick little compilation of the. So Philly, Franklin Institute had like a multi-month exhibit in their large exhibit space that was dedicated to games, games throughout history. They had a whole bunch of arcade cabinets. They had a whole bunch of games throughout, from Pong to Minecraft essentially. And they hit us up to take part. This is Woody kind of walking through the exhibit and like to give some context of all the crazy games and game art and props and stuff around, and like they had, design notebook pages from Tim Schafer and stuff. It's very cool. Like the music games were very popular, and Phillytron was there. It was the representative of our community in a Philly institution that's like talking about games as a phenomenon, which is really cool. So you'll see we kind of like hone in on the Phillytron here, but it was there for almost 2 months of the I think 4-month exhibit or something. It got constant play. I don't know how many hours a day the exhibit. I think it varied day to day, but 12 to 16 hours a day the exhibit was open. Phillytron was in use basically all the time. I actually hit him up with an email. I haven't heard back, but I would guess that definitely thousands of people.
That's my niece being totally uninterested in the Phillytron.
She was the only person not engaged by that.
She's like, yeah, give me a snack, maybe I can get excited.
But definitely thousands, maybe 5,000, maybe I don't know how many people played the Phillytron while it was there, but thousands, which is a crazy amount of exposure for the games that were there, and just really, really cool. Like to be in that context, and also it held up really well. Like kids were hanging off of it. It got constant use from a lot of people, and I think brought a lot of joy to people, and hopefully brought some awareness of our game scene to like an audience we could otherwise not hope to reach. So here's some photos of people playing it there, which are cool.
Yeah, so you can see in the one photo that Jake put together this kind of blurb about what the Phillytron was, and they made this huge sign. And when we set it there next to the cabinet, people would walk up, and some people would just immediately start playing it because they're like, oh, your game, I'll just start whacking away at it. And the people who would walk up behind would not actually be able to really see the game, but they would start reading the sign, and then they would actually become really, really interested. So it's actually this weird kind of thing where the first people to play it would usually only play it for about a minute, but the second and the third group of people would always play it for like 10 minutes because they're like, what are all these games? This looks really, really cool. I actually have a context for what this is. And I think that gave a lot of people sort of a context of, oh yeah, that was the troll that lives inside the cabinet. But it gave people like this context for like, oh, games are made here. I didn't really think of that as being a thing, and putting the Phillytron in the sort of like indie games part of the exhibit actually really helped that a lot, I thought, because there was this arcade when you first walked in, and I was kind of like, oh, I hope we're in the arcade with all these classic arcade games. And then when they put us in the very, sort of back corner of the indie game space, I was like, actually, this is so much better because there's the context of like games made by small teams, and then in the context of being next to the game that the Franklin made, 8-Bit Bend, actually having a game made in that actual space, like inside the Franklin Institute. I think it really worked so well together, which was really, really cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about like some of the software updates and some of the like hardware updates you do with like learning from some of our mistakes, or can we talk about that?
I don't know. That seems like super uninteresting.
Okay.
Most people.
Cool.
I would maybe we're
Software and
gonna.
hardware changes.
Yeah.
I'll tell, the event it did after Franklin was Fringe event. So we had a Fringe, digital Fringe showcase. Reset, Hard, and R&J were both showed at it, in addition to Woody's film and 11 total pieces. It was really cool. Phillytron was there. It was at Harrisburg University and Hushman College, which is like a joint campus. And just really quickly, it was there, hanging out, got some more play. It also lived at Harrisburg for like a week and a half. Every time we went there, someone was playing it. I was just hanging out in the student lounge, so that was kind of cool. Also, really quickly, we've gotten like a pretty good amount of press coverage. When we initially put it together, technically covered it. Then when it went over to Franklin, technically covered it again. Also got mentioned by the Inquirer, which is kind of cool for the Fringe event. I just talked to Roberto again. I think he's gonna like mention it in a follow-up to the Fringe thing. So it's getting a good amount of press, which is really cool. So here we are. It's back finally. It did a really great job, and now we want to kind of like make it even better for what's next. You guys want to talk about what's next?
Yeah, are there slides for that?
No.
Alright, cool.
Last slide.
Yeah, so what's
It
next?
hasn't happened. I don't have Daniel's powers to go fetch photos from the future.
Yeah, so what's next is, the first thing that's what's next is a thing that I'll talk about more over the next couple months. I mentioned it in the Slack, if you're already in the Slack. But we're doing the Indie Arcade at Color Space again, which is the first Friday event. Last year we did it, and it was our biggest event we ever ran. There was about 300 people. It's in a cool art space in Kensington. It was sponsored by Pabst Blue Ribbon. It was really cool. And this year we're going to do it again, but way more vaporwave and neon. So that's the next event it's going to be at, and then after that, we're going to try and send it to MagFest again in January to have a great time, or a really bad time at MagFest, depending on how you like your MagFest. So I guess what we were going to ask or bring up is that I also made this VR game, and I also am working on a lot of other games, and I'm also a teacher, and I can't do all of the software updates and developer relations stuff all by myself, and Kyle, the guy who did all the hardware, the control top, is moving to Pittsburgh, so we're looking to kind of recruit people onto the team, because I need to go to bed, mostly. So one, we're looking for people who have carpentry skills, and we're looking for some Unity devs who can learn. It's an open source thing made by some dudes in Winnipeg that I've modified to make it local, because theirs is like a network thing. It's not very hard. I'm going to put up a GitHub repo and you can pull it down, and if you're interested, check it out. And then just generally, like, we're always looking for new projects for it. So if you go to our website, I have a Google Doc that needs a little bit of updating, to be honest, but it has like the general instructions if you want to make a game for it, or have a game that you want to try and port to it. The limitations are every player gets 1 stick and 3 buttons, unless you want to do something weird that's like 2-player with 2 sticks and 6 buttons or something. So you can do kind of whatever you want with it. It supports, out of the box, it supports Unreal, Unity, Flash, Pico 8, Game Maker. There's a couple like custom engine games on it, including a game that is running an NES emulator underneath it, and a game that was made in Final Form Games engine, which is called something that Jamestown was made in, if you've ever played the game Jamestown. So we kind of can support whatever, just make sure you read up on the limitations of the sticks and buttons, and they need to be certain keyboard buttons bound to them to make it work. But yeah, we're hoping to just kind of fill it with games forever in perpetuity. So like there's no deadlines other than there are events it goes to, and if you are not like squared away and approved safe for that event, because my first MagFest trip was like a lot of the problems end up being the games crash, and that takes out the launcher, and then I have to reset the computer, and that's a big pain in the butt. So you get your game in with enough lead up time to an event, it'll be an event, and that's very cool for you and for us. I think there's like currently 20 games living on it, but only like 10 of them work at a time. So that's what I need help with, but we're also looking to expand it. So
Yeah, we'll put out a more
Yeah.
formal call or hit us up if you want to take part, but just like, is anybody like interested in kind of helping out, getting like the kind of launcher software side going?
Like a short hands.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Well, I think we only need a couple more people, and I think they'll be there, so
So
yeah,
what
hit us
we'll-
up, and we're trying to get a half day together, maybe the 29th, here potentially. Still working out details, but.
Okay, but yeah, so the idea would be that if Indy Hall ends up being cool with it, would be here on the 29th, or, yeah, 29th or 30th, basically, whichever of those 2 days works for them. And like probably in the afternoon into the evening, and we're gonna try to get like some food for you guys, whatever, you guys want, just let us know, sandwiches, pizza, whatever. And then the big thing is, for whatever reason, I don't know if you just mentioned this or not, is that a lot of the bugs that we're running into seem to be specific to when the software actually runs on the computer that's inside the Phillytron. So similar spec computers will sometimes not have the same bugs, so actually hosting the event here and being able to test on the only hardware that the software, that the Phillytron software is going to be running on is really, really important. So if you do want to help out and you do want to do that from home, that's great, but actually being here to like all meet together, and Steve can run down the list of like the 10 or 15 bullet points that folks from Franklin Institute have kind of given to us and saying like, these are the most common crashes and bugs that we're running into. And even if you can only donate like an hour or two to that on that day, it would be so huge in helping us to like solve a lot of those problems and making it so the system crashes less and more games get played and people are just generally happier and give the Phillytron lots of little kisses. But yeah, that's the goal, is like the 29th or the 30th, so whenever Indy Hall in the next couple of days lets us know, then we would really appreciate if you guys want to come in and help Steve here for that. That'd be so awesome. Let's give Steve a round of applause. Does anybody have any questions about the Phillytron or about that meetup? Yeah.
Where we post details when it's finalized?
We'll post it on the Slack, and then yeah, we'll post it on the Facebook as an event, and then also in the Discord, even though nobody ever goes there except me.
on the Discord. It's a good Discord.
Yeah. We have a Discord, yeah. Any other questions about